Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, John Nye, and Josh All.
Hey, Dog Pack Nation, Browns backers worldwide, whoop, whoop, whoop. It's another Throwback Thursday with the Dawgs podcast, and I want to know how the heck you guys are doing. Are y'all recovered from all the parties last weekend? It was Canada Day up here, 4th of July down where you guys are at. If you guys haven't recovered yet, don't worry, I got something for you. Kick your feet up, throw this podcast on, and hang out with me for a little bit. I'm your host, Kenny Mack, and I want to pump you up for another player from the past. But before we get started, let's get through all the social. So follow the Dawgs. They're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Be sure to like this video on YouTube. Drop a comment in the comment section, whatever platform you want to, of course. And let us know how we're doing. Let me know how I'm doing, the Dawgs, whatever you can do. You guys remember how I got started. I was leaving voicemails and I was leaving show intros on the Dawgs podcast. It's super easy to do. You go to their website. It's www.dogspodcast.com. And then you just send a voicemail, press it. Then you can just hit start and you're off to the races. And I gave you a little tip last week. If you don't like what you're doing, hit reset, start her over again. So what I like to do is go over a couple comments from last week. So we'll see who had some comments based on the Jamar Miller episode that we did last week. So at the Duke 8504 definitely wants to let us know that there is a 95, but there's only one, and we know Jamar Miller was 95, but there's a 95 on the team right now that's going to go to the Hall of Fame. This is Myles Garrett. Did a shout out to Nick Chubb as well, but he wants to let everybody know somebody's letting him down, and that's not the Dawgs podcast. That is the refs. Hey guys, wake up. Wake the heck up. We need some holding calls. Boom, boom, boom. Get those flags out. Throw them. He's being held sometimes by 3 players. So let's go. Then next up, Sergeant Jackie Boy, 2150. Love the post, Kenny. Hey man, we love you watching us. So get after it. Throw some more comments in there, buddy. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Sassy Bernard, 6947. Like the linebacker pick, but hey, what about the Clay Matthews love? Well, man, I loved that guy growing up. I played linebacker in high school. I was defensive end on rushing downs. I liked what he could do. He had all the game. You could line him up at defensive end. He could rush. He could tackles for losses. He could cover the backs out of the backfield. So he could do it all. And man, I wanted to be like him. So I don't have his jersey, but maybe that's an upcoming episode. Then we also have Nick, 4382. He said they need to stop trading and see what they got on offense. Well, dude, we're going to see what they got on offense this year. But if you could elaborate on that, I'd really appreciate it. But thanks to writing into the show. So let's get back to the show and see what we're going to talk about. So what I want to do is I want to focus in on the running back group. And we got a stud, like was mentioned, in Nick Chubb. So we're going to pretend that he's on the team and he's not getting displaced at all. We're looking at the depth, because one of the biggest things Browns fans see is they see a perceived lack of depth because we don't know with the experience of the guys that are there, Demetric and Ford and all those young guys. Just, we're not 100% sure. So this week's throwback player is going to be a multi-talented, versatile back. He can run, he can catch, he even thrown some touchdowns. And when he ran the rock, man, he had all the moves, and it was in full display no matter how he did it, in whatever way that he could. And what I mean by that is he did it at running back, he did it at receiver, he did it at quarterback, and he did it on kickoff and punt returns. And what I'm talking about as a guy who was ahead of his time, and it's Eric freaking Metcalf, son of NFL star Terry Metcalf. So let's see where it all began, and I kind of just let the cat out of the bag. Of course, he was born into it. His father played in the NFL, played with the St. Louis Cardinals from 73 to 77. He moved on to the CFL from 78 to 80. I know it's hard to believe, but the CFL could compete salary-wise with the NFL at that time. He also played one season with the Redskins, but as an NFLer, he still got us some accolades. So this is what they were. 1 second-team All-Pro and 3 Pro Bowls for what he did. His name went in the record books, 2,462 combined yards. But get this, it was a 14-game season then. That 14-game season, that lasted up to 78 or into the 80s, early 80s some point. So it wasn't always a 16-game season, and now it's 17. So you guys can kind of see where I'm going and why I'm telling you a little bit about Terry the father. But we'll back up to Junior a little bit right now. So he started like so many other NFL guys, excelled in, obviously, football, but had a great track career as well. So coming out of Virginia, he was expected, Virginia's a ACC school, or it was at the time, probably expected to go to an ACC school, and he would be pumped to be a Miami Hurricane. But they had a really, really bad reputation to be the bad boys of the college scene, and his parents were not having that. He was in the Catholic school system, and they wanted him to go to Notre Dame. So what was the compromise? Well, there was one school that would let him pursue football and track and field, and that was the Texas Longhorns. And, well, how did he do there? If you know where he got drafted, he did pretty well. But at the University of Texas, Metcalf was all Southwest Conference selection 3 times in his 4 years. In 87, he was the Southwest Conference Player of the Year, and that got him second-team All-American nod. He racked up the yards in 4 years, and he still holds most of the school records. He racked up 451 total yards from the line of scrimmage. So that's rushing and receiving together. Then he added another whopping 1,650 yards on top of that. So that put the cherry on top of his college career cake, let's say. He still holds most of the records, like I say. And now he's super humble because while he acknowledges he holds those records, most of the guys sat for a couple of years and they played maybe 1 year, where because he was so talented and played all those different positions, you got to play all 4 years. So that's why you got to pile up those numbers. But hey, he still did it, and he was awesome. Not only was he awesome at football, he was awesome at track, and you got to check out these accolades that he had. So, set the university mark at Texas, long jump record, 8.44 meters, which still stands at that school today. He won the NCAA long jump championship 2 times, 86 and 88. The U.S. Junior National Long Jump Champion 2 times again, 86 and 87. In the entire NCAA time that he had, 5-time NCAA All-American. Competed in the U.S. trials, finishing 8th. Between 86 and 89, you know what he's competing against? Carl freaking Lewis, man. That's pretty good. Not too bad for a football player. And that was all before the draft.
All right, before we move on, though, real quick, this is for all you Browns fans here in Ohio. I'm excited to share some great news with you. If you have not signed up yet for DraftKings, you can take advantage right now of a limited time promo for new users. All you have to do, deposit and place a $5 wager on any sport, and you will instantly get $150 added to your account in bonus bets. Whether you win or lose, you still get the bonus. All you have to do, use our code THEDAWGS at sign up, all one word. And here's the thing, using our code THEDAWGS not only gets you the bonus, but it also supports this podcast. So if you haven't signed up for DraftKings yet, please do us a favor, sign up with the code THEDAWGS and place that first bet. Deals like this are what keep our podcast going year-round. This offer is only available for new customers who are 21 years and older and physically present in Ohio. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer. For more details, visit DraftKings.com to take advantage of this incredible opportunity today.
But school was done, and you know what comes next. It's the NFL Combine. So I can give you some measurables. His height, 5'9". Weight, 180 pounds. 40-yard dash, 4.45. Ran the shuttle split and the 20-yard split. So they did that back. I couldn't really find any comparisons currently, but they were 1.8 seconds and 2.59 seconds respectively. And then last but not least, everybody likes to know the vertical. He was 33. So that's pretty good numbers. And I'm going to kind of put this out there for you guys. I just noticed this slight comparison. We got an unrestricted free agent, rookie free agent, that is. And here's his measurables. So you think these kind of compare. 5'11", 190 pounds, ran a sub 4.5 second in the 40-meter dash. 37-inch vertical. Averaged 150 all-purpose yards in one of the worst offenses in the NCAA this year. And guess what? He also has track experience. Who am I talking about? That's right, it's Hassan Hall. Man, I'm telling you, if Hassan Hall can be 50% of what Metcalf is, or 75% of, let's say, Josh Cribbs, please, I hope this for the team. But back to Eric Metcalf. He was ready for the draft. The Browns were a very talented team in '89, and they were veteran-laden. The Browns wanted someone, Browns fans that is, they wanted anyone that could stop Elway, because we were sick of him after the drive, after the fumble, and so on. We're so tired of that guy. Get Derek Thomas, So in 1989, April 23rd, we surprisingly trade up to 13. So there's no way we're picking a running back. We're getting someone to rush the passer. It's got to be. The Browns took Eric Metcalf. So while it was a little surprising, you got to remember that year they did trade Ernest Miner. So there was no Mack and Miner combo anymore. So maybe it was going to be a Mack, Metcalf, and Oliphant. I don't know if you remember him. Not very good. Then if you didn't catch it, I am going to sidestep this just a little bit. We're talking about the 89 draft pick class. And you guys need to hear who came out of that lineup, or that lineup of players. So out of the top 5 picks, these are 4 guys, all in the Hall of Fame. Troy Aikman, Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, and Deion Sanders. The 5th Hall of Famer is Steve Atwater, and he was picked around in the 20s. One more side note, the Browns did take Lawyer Tillman with their 2nd overall pick. And I'll get to you why I named that later. So, year 1, the Browns have their new rookie, and he definitely added some juice to this team. Check this out. He added 1,700 all-purpose yards. So special teams and offense. And this is what kind of it broke down like. Receiving, 633 yards on 187 attempts, 6 TDs. Well, I made a mistake. That was rushing. Receiving now is 397 yards on 54 receptions, 4 TDs, and then he threw 718 yards on 31 kickoff attempts on top of that. Well, the Browns rode that combined yardage right into a wild card win over the Bills and a trip to the AFC Championship. Doesn't get too much better than that, other than land the Super Bowl, of course. So with these high expectations, the 1990 season, I'm not going to lie, was a bit of a fizzle. From all the sizzle of last year, the Browns had no playoff hopes with a 3-13 record, and there was a mid-season coaching firing. So the stats kind of went backwards for the second-year player. He only had 700 yards on 137 touches for 2 TDs, but he did set a career high and an NFL most in kickoff return yards. So 1,052 yards on 52 returns for 2 TDs. But in this time, I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to hear from our sponsors. I'll see you in 2 seconds.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Browns fans, you know that rooting for this team alone can be a serious cost for therapy. But let's be real. And guys, you know what I'm talking about, whether you want to admit it or not. Sometimes we're just not okay. And it's okay to not be okay, but it's time to step up and do something about it. Talk therapy is a tremendous avenue to dealing with the stresses and anxieties we all face in everyday life. As men, we often experience the weight of providing for our families while trying to appear as strong as possible, but trying to hold it all together creates a ton of pressure. And BetterHelp provides a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you understand and manage your emotions. Look, we all have big feelings and we all go through rough times in life where we just need to talk through things. BetterHelp lets you talk to your therapist whenever and however it's convenient for you. You can video chat or call, or you can just send a text message to your therapist whenever you need to talk. And you don't have to worry about whether your therapist is the right fit for you because you can switch anytime at no additional charge. Unlike traditional talk therapy where you have to adjust your schedule to fit into the therapist's calendar, BetterHelp is completely flexible and allows you to schedule time to talk that fits your calendar. Right now, get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/dogs. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/dogs, DAWGS. Give it a try. Try it out for a month and just see if talk therapy is right for you. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/dogs. Take back control of your feelings and give BetterHelp a try today.
All right, guys. Yes, there is something different about me. It is my hat, and I'm going to get the reason why I changed my hat. Funny story about the other hat. I actually bought that in Cleveland Stadium in 1993 when he was still part of the Cleveland Browns. But let's get right back into it. So we got out of the 89-90 season. So he's in his second year. The Browns are rebuilding. So they hired this coach. You may have heard of him. He was a defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, and they were fresh off a Super Bowl win. You may have heard of the guy, Bill Belichick. He did a couple things in his career. But his whole goal was to dismantle the roster and add some toughness, especially up the middle. And I'll tell you, man, watching Bill grow from a coordinator to a coach was a little painstaking sometimes, but you could see that he had some talent. Now, I will tell you, in the 91 season, that team, that roster was almost as bad as the 0-16 team that we had, but he somehow managed to squeeze 6-10 out of that team, which was unreal. Now, it helps when Nick Saban's your defensive coordinator. And, the frustrating part about him, though, Bill Belichick, is he had this inability to figure out Metcalf. And if you saw how the Giants played in the late 90s, they had a player named Dave Meggett who was very similar to Metcalf. So how can you not drop kind of the same plays and do the same things? Meggett was just a squattier version and a slightly slower version of Eric Metcalf, but he was an all-purpose phenom just like him. Now, the weird thing about that season is he only played 8 games, so he had really half of what he had the previous season. 59 touches, 401 yards, but it was the first time he actually handled punts, which I think he did return one that year. 92 was a way better season, and there's much more to talk about. He was in a full season. My bad, he returned his first punt that year. His combined yardage would double, and he would have more TDs at 6. And I'll get into the coming out party he kind of had against the Raiders a little bit later. The low light, though, was Bill Belichick, and for some reason he had a game. I'm sure every Browns fan has heard about this. Metcalf up the middle. Well, Bill Belichick thought it was a great idea in a third and long situation to try and trick the defense, and instead of having Metcalf, say, run a wheel route to the flats, he did a draw up the middle. Well, needless to say, you know what happened if you know the term, but if you're a Browns fan, it browned out. And he got, I was going to say sacked, he got tackled for a loss, and the game was over, basically. And people went on and on about it. It was so bad, still today we hear about this, and it's basically a term used by Browns fans to describe the inability of a coaching staff to utilize a player correctly. Next was 1993, and that entire season was a coming out party for him. He had a special year. The hoodie finally figured out what to do with him. I will say, though, his production somewhat suffered, and Bill Belichick, as you know, is super stubborn. And the Browns were kind of a guinea pig for him to learn how to call plays in the NFL. So if you look at 91, 92, 93, take a look at who the offensive coordinators were. They didn't have one. It was him. Now, there could have been some kind of collaboration between the O-line coach, which was Kurt Ferenz, who's no slouch. Steve Crosby, one of his running back coaches, and the receiver coach, which last name was Shepard. So, I could go on and on forever about what they did wrong, but Matt the Jet was the shining part of a dark season for the Browns. And you guys know what happened in 93. That was the year that POS, Art Modell, decided to side with Belichick, and they did the most unspeakable thing possible. They cut Bernie Kosar, which is another quotation marks line that we use, due to diminishing skills. Well, at least with, Metcalf pulled his part up that season. He returned to form in special teams. He was an all-pro selection and made the Pro Bowl. He had a career high in yardage, which was 1,150 yards, and had 100 off 193 touches. He also had 1,932 yards, all purpose. He had one of the best returns ever in Cleveland Browns history. It will give you goosebumps, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Every Browns fan has seen this, or you have showed your family at one point or another. And that was a touchdown in an epic game against the Steelers, which we are going to get to. 94 was the next season, and it was a good season for the Browns, and it was a decent season for Metcalf, but I feel like they really used him right. Belichick finally molded the team in his image, and what he wanted to do is he wanted to use Leroy Horde and his huge offensive line, which was one of the biggest at the time, and knock you out on offense. Then he had Eric Turner and some hard-driving, tackling guys on D to knock you out on defense. And they were really, really good on special teams. Really sound. And that was a Bill Belichick team. So they took Metcalf, they sprinkled him in. He had 140 touches, 765 yards, and 5 TDs. But overall, all-purpose-wise, this is where he had more. Combined, it was 1,323 yards for 7 TDs. The Browns made the playoffs. They were 11-5, and they beat Bill Parcells and the New England Patriots in their first wildcard game, only to move on to the next round of the Steelers, where they did lose. Metcalf made another Pro Bowl appearance for the second straight season. Unfortunately, I got to get into the 95 season, and you guys all know what happened. But unbeknownst to EM21, he got traded before that season, so didn't have to experience much of it. And, you know, the irony of being a Browns fan is the Falcons traded for Eric Metcalf. We ended up not signing Eric Metcalf to a bigger deal, trading him away so we didn't have to pay him. And we took all that money and we gave it to a guy that was drafted the same year as him, Andre Rison. But what had ended up happening? Eric Metcalf turned into a great receiver in the slot, in the run and shoot. What did we get? Well, we got a big kick in the junk, seeing Rison not do anything. He got cut 5 to 7 games into the season, and I think he possibly won a Super Bowl with the Packers, I believe, that year. Maybe it was 2 years later. And then we lost our team for 3 years. So that really sucked. The only thing worth mentioning is he did have another Pro Bowl season. After 2 great years with the Falcons, he did get traded again to the San Diego Chargers. He made All-Pro and the Pro Bowl as a returner with the Chargers in 1997. After 4 more seasons in the NFL, he did decide to hang it up in 2002. But for the Browns, he played 6 years, 89 to 94, left us with some great memories. How did he make his mark when he was there? Well, he led the league in 90 with kickoff return yardage. He made the All-Pro team 2 times, but 1 as a Brown. He made the Pro Bowl 3 times, 1 as a Brown. And he is in the Cleveland Browns Legends Club. I am going to take one more break, let you guys see. Probably going to talk maybe about the Nick Chubb Crunch cereal promo that we have, and we'll get on with it.
What's up, Browns fans? We're excited to announce that we have partnered with Nick Chubb's team at PLB Sports and Entertainment to bring you Chubb Crunch. Now you can stiff arm breakfast with the sweet and cinnamon toast squares that pack a punch of flavor in every bite. And while the cereal itself is delicious, let's be real, it's the box that Browns fans want the most. No Cleveland Browns man cave is complete without this collector's item. Display your box of Chubb Crunch proudly with all your other Nick Chubb and Cleveland Browns memorabilia. But the best part about Chubb Crunch is that a portion of every sale supports First Candle, the nonprofit committed to ending sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. First Candle also provides bereavement support to families who have experienced loss to SIDS. Nick Chubb's sister lost her own child to SIDS in 2018, and now she's actually part of the organization working to prevent this tragedy from impacting others. So Browns fans, let's work together here to support Nick Chubb, his sister, and all those families impacted by SIDS. Plus, you get to display the awesome limited time edition Chubb Crunch collector's box in your man cave. So hurry now while supplies last, because once Chubb Crunch is gone, it's gone. Plus, use our promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, when you order and get 10% off. That's right. Nick's sister gets support, you get a discount, and your man cave gets an awesome collector's item. Head to plbse.com right now and use code DAWGS, DAWGS, to get 10% off your order of Chub Crunch. That's plbse.com, promo code DAWGS.
All right, guys, now we are in the home stretch. So we have to ask ourselves, was Eric Metcalf one of the greatest all-purpose players ever? Well, he certainly was with the Browns. And I'll give you three of my memories, my very vivid memories of him. And the first one, I'll go from backwards. So we'll go number 3. On January 3rd, 1989, the Browns faced the Bills in an epic wildcard showdown. The Bills were super ready for Eric Metcalf. They did not need a rookie that was going to ruin their Super Bowl aspirations. In a seesaw game, the Bills bottled up that rookie. He only had 10 touches and 21 yards, but they made one mistake. Same thing that the Steelers did in 93. They kicked to him. And in a kickoff, he took it all the way after a score, 90 yards for a touchdown and a wild card win against the Bills. Now, I will tell you, as that went seesawing back and forth, the Bills did drive all the way down, and Clay Matthews, who we mentioned earlier in the show, intercepted Jim Kelly across the middle on the goal line is what I'm trying to say, and sealed the deal for the Browns. But they wouldn't have done it without that touchdown from Eric Metcalf. Now, a lot of you guys will remember in 92, I said I was going to get back to how he had a coming out party against the Raiders. Now, this was an unreal game, and most Browns fans will remember this one. Metcalf, not only did he score 1 touchdown, not 2, not 3, scored 4 freaking touchdowns. He put all 28 points on the board to Oakland's 16. And guess what? The Browns only had 200 yards receiving that game. This is what his final stat was. You're not going to believe this. So he finished the game. The Browns only had 34 yards that entire game rushing. He had 10 of them and a touchdown. So that's 1 touchdown. And then you're not going to believe this. The 200 yards that they had passing, he had 177 of them. I believe he had a 69 and 68-yard catches in those games, both resulting in touchdowns. So that's where the other 3 touchdowns came from. It is unreal. His favorite play, though, in listening to him on the Club 46 YouTube video that he did, his favorite play, again, was against the Raiders. And in a miserable game in 93, the slow starting just could not get going. And I remember being so irate at this game. It was so awful to watch. The Browns were down 14-3 at half and should be storming all over these guys, and they weren't. But I said storm. Well, they stormed back with 5 minutes left. After, I threw my tantrum, I turned the TV back on. The Browns were driving down the field, and they were lined up, I believe, at the 5-yard line, set up in a 4-receiver setup with Metcalf back. And they had, and this is why I said I'd mentioned Lawyer Tillman earlier, Lawyer Tillman was in the slot. He was 6'4", 220 pounds, and he cracked down so hard on the DB that was lined up in the slot that Metcalf walked in untouched, time expired for a TD, and the Browns win the game. And Metcalf said, as a kid, you always wanted to play and get the last touchdown to win the game. And he did. My favorite and your favorite, everybody knows this story. With his 12 combined kickoffs and punt returns for TDs, everybody remembers the one that sealed the deal against the Squealers in 93. In October, the Browns and Steelers squared off at 4 p.m. in the afternoon for a bloodbath, a slugfest. Early in the game, he had already returned 1 for his longest ever, 91 yards. Pretty good for a guy that wasn't even supposed to play. He had a knee injury all week, and I don't even think he practiced. As the game goes back and forth, the Browns are down by 2 points. It looks like they're going to be on the other end of another close game against the Steelers. But I believe there was 1 or 2 minutes left on the clock, and for some reason, the Steelers lost their mind. What would you do? Would you kick to Eric Metcalf? Well, they sure did, and his lightning run kicked off about 5 steps, and then all of a sudden he jukes to the right. He darts down the right side, and the wall's set up. All he's got to do is keep running. But sidesteps one defender, then high steps 2 others, 75 yards. It is touchdown, and it is beating the Steelers. Whoop, whoop. 28-23 victory over the Steelers. That was a hell of a game and one of my favorites ever. And I know you guys that are watching this, that was one of your favorite games ever too. So yes, he is one of the greatest all-purpose players ever. He has the stats to back it up. We just put it out, and I want to thank Dave Anderson. He posted his Eric Metcalf jersey, his most precious jersey that he owns, and tagged us at the Dawgs podcast. Josh put out the stats. I think he had 9,000 combined yards for his career. With the Browns, I think that he had about 6,000 of that with the Browns, and that's combined yards. He sits. So there's only 2 players that have done this. 500 carries, 500 catches, 250 punt returns, 250 kickoff returns. There's only one other guy that did that, and it was Darren Sproles. Similar style players. He sits behind touchdown-wise, Devin Hester, Brian Mitchell. He's third all-time with 12, so 10 punt returns, 2 kickoff returns. When he plays, man, his plays are big, and they usually were capped off by touchdowns, and that's why I would say he was a great player. As far as Metcalf nowadays, you can follow him on Twitter. I do at Eric Metcalf 21. This is what I learned about just following him. The dude stays in shape, man. He hikes. He uses a weighted vest. He gets around the Emerald Lake area. He loves sports. He follows the Browns. He follows the Cavs. Pretty sure he follows the Guardians too. Follows his Longhorns, that's for sure. Seems to love basketball. I'm a huge fan of the dude. I got a chance to meet him with Felix Wright and Hanford Dixon in Las Vegas in 2022. All 3 guys are great. Eric was a little quieter, but man, if you want to talk to him, he loves cigars, he loves the punch, and believe it or not, he has his own cigar line. You can go to prohibitionscigars.com and get the EM21s. I know I want to get some soon. I just got to be in the States when I get them because I don't want to get them across the border here. Pay extra duty. He also has and loves hats. And Eric, if you're watching this, buddy, I put this hat on for you and I bought it with you in mind. I know you have your separate bag for your hats on the plane and you got some great ones. Definitely have some stuff in common with that guy. So, after everything you heard, can you imagine the possibilities with Kevin Stefanski signing somebody like this that could help with running back depth, receiver depth, and on special teams? Bubba Vitrone would lose his mind. And you know what? Maybe the Browns did uncover some unrestricted, undrafted free agent gem. So here's the hoping that one of these guys works out, Hassan Hall. So I want to end the episode right now. I really appreciate you guys. Dave Anderson, he put on his Metcalf gear up already and tagged us. Who's going to be the next? Tag your Metcalf gear, tag your Turner gear, tag some old school gear, hit us up on social. Check out the partnership the Browns have with Nick Chubb. I'll mention again, they got that cereal thing going on. Check out the website. Thanks for spending time with me in my dog cave. And thanks to the Dawgs podcast. See you next Tuesday.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.